we have two of our esteemed Washington Informer journalists, well, three, I hope, Prince George's County reporter Richard Elliot, sports reporter Skylar Nelson, and our Washington Informer managing editor Micha Green to join us on our roundtable today to discuss some of the hottest topics in the news in the DMV. Welcome to Let's Talk, folks.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us. I'm so excited for this.
So before we go too far, Skylar, you're the newest person on the team. I don't want to shout you out, but I do. Right? You're a Howard University student. You're pursuing. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, what you're majoring in, and just how you found the Washington Informer.
Yes. So my name is, I guess I'll introduce myself. I am Skylar Nelson. I am a senior journalism major at Howard University. I do have a minor in sports administration, and I am from Baltimore, Maryland. So yeah, I'm honestly so excited to be here and just knowing about the Informer. I'm not sure if you remember this, Miss Denise, but you actually came to one of my classes. It was multicultural media history, and I had Bermonte Bryant as a professor, and he raved about you tremendously. And that day we actually met, and you gave me a copy of the Informer, and then that's when I met Mr. Hill later on down the line, Mr. Edward Hill, and then he connected me with you. So that was one of the biggest things, I think, for me, the Informer just being a woman-owned basically like a woman-owned publication and a newspaper, and just seeing that and seeing your work and seeing the work of Miss Green, it just really just inspired me. And just coming into here, and as a Black press in terms of that, I was something that I really wanted to get involved in. And I'm actually truly grateful for this experience and cannot wait to connect with you all more and, to continue to keep informing the people of Washington, D.C.
Well, you remind me years ago, Micha, and I don't know if you know her, Richard, but we had one of our early sports writers was a woman named Carla Pay. And Carla was really, just she was out there with the guys, unfortunately, because she was breaking barriers in the area of sports. And so I'm glad that you're here because women can talk the talk. We just heard you and Shevry, our producer, having that conversation about the Commanders. We're going to talk to them a little bit later, talk about them a little bit later. But I'm just glad that you're on board and so happy to have you. Right, Micha?
Oh, my goodness. I am ecstatic. I was joking with Skylar this morning. She might be one of our most prolific interns in terms of all the work that she's gotten out. Skylar started before the school year started, everyone. So I think that just shows you her commitment. And what really excited me was her first story was on the ground right before the Olympics. Silver Spring honored Dominique Dawes. And Skylar did not say, I'm not going to Silver Spring when I could be chilling in Baltimore on the last couple of weeks of my summer vacation, my last summer vacation, might I add. And, I said, well, if she's ready, let's go. And it's been such a treat to have you, and particularly your the curated hot takes on the Commanders every week. We super appreciate that.
So, Richard, we don't want to leave you out now, and we're going to bring you in a little bit because we're so glad that you are covering Prince George's County on the ground. And it's a lot going on in the county. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think we're going to jump right now into our first topic, folks, and that is this controversy that I don't even know if we can put a period behind this sentence with regards to And Pizza, the DC-based pizza chain that outraged DC residents with the launch of this marketing campaign featuring a dessert item called Marion Berry Knots. What made a bad idea worse was the focus of the powdered sugar featured in the ad and the slogan, "These knots will blow you up." The inference to the late Marion for Life Berry and his drug-related arrest infuriated many DC locals, including Ron Moten, Reverend Tony Lee, and of course, the former First Lady, Cora Masters Berry, to name a few. What say ye, folks, about this situation? Who wants to start us off?
Well, I think Richard should start us off because he was the fearless journalist who has been covering it. And then I'll sort of weigh in from some intel I got this early morning. Richard, are you able to weigh in a bit?
Okay, sorry, the internet just went out where I was. The ad campaign regarding the Marion Berry Knots was disrespectful. It was degrading. One of the speakers at the rally, a key point he made is this doesn't just make fun of Marion Berry, just one short period of his life. This makes fun of everybody going through drug addiction recovery. It's a distasteful ad. It's not funny. And this not only affects DC natives and people currently living in DC, but many people living in Prince George's and Maryland and Northern Virginia are products of Marion Berry's administration, the opportunities that he gave to minority contractors, the opportunities he gave through the jobs program that helped many people, not just into the middle class, but off of their backs onto their feet. The ad was disgusting, and the simple fact that they've taken it down so fast after the CEO originally made such heinous comments of we can't wait for all DC to try it, and this isn't really about the mayor. We just are making a cheeky joke. They have quote unquote backed down, but I think that was just in the face of a lot of outrage and organizing efforts that are calling for boycotts to happen, I believe, starting tonight at the U Street location where many people go after they go to the clubs on U Street.
Micha?
Yeah, again, thank you, Richard, for that breakdown in your coverage. I think one really interesting point you noted was the community interest piece on next steps of how this really affects folks down the road. We're talking about not just people who might be struggling with drug addiction or have done so in the past or have had family members, but we're talking about rhetoric that should not be celebrated in the community. And so this morning, as I was attempting to sort of figure out why the protests were still going on, and after Ann Pizza's apology, is because now activists are demanding respect, but also demanding action that goes beyond an apology, and that is ensuring that something like this doesn't happen again. But also, they're trying to raise funds and get Ann Pizza to donate money to the Marion Berry Jr. Legacy Foundation, which does a lot of community work. And so I think that this is a really good opportunity that local activists are taking to continue building on the momentum, particularly as we're in a very divisive season, this election season, to see folks coming together in this way to now promote progress is great. As I've seen a lot of people say, and I will see on the record, I also want to see this momentum that folks have had about this Ann Pizza controversy around heading to the polls in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know, Skylar, if I don't know, you were still kind of young. I don't know if you knew much about Marion Berry, but coming to DC, I know it's not hard to be familiar with that name. Any conversations going on campus?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway to kind of see about this is also too just how it shows Black leaders in the community, how we are perceived. And I think the biggest thing that we can see from this is just the fact of that just really just puts Black people on a pedestal of so this is how we're being represented. This is how we're being perceived. It not only was disrespectful, but it honestly just showed that this is something that needs to change. This is what people see. And I think the biggest thing is that has been mentioned before is, and I'm glad that Ms. Green brought this up, is I'm very encouraged to see how people will take this and take it to the polls, because with Kamala Harris running and with that in mind, we get to see kind of the dynamic of how we are going to take those next steps for change. And on campus, there have been just a lot of people just talking about how can we make these changes in order to move forward, and to pave a new way forward as well.
You know, I'll just say the thing that's frustrating me also the most about this is if you read, it's the bias that we have in the media. And, you know, we all have it. Even the Washington Informer can be charged with having some biases about certain issues from time to time. But if you read the other publications, one of the things that they keep saying is that Marion Barry is still sort of upheld as a hero by the poor and you know, underrepresented communities. And that's not the case only, right? I mean, folks east of the river, particularly over here in Ward 8, Southeast, you know, appreciate him too. But Richard, I think you really brought it home when you talked about individuals who have benefited or who benefited from the Barry administration. Many of them were developers, right? And they, there's so many who are not Black, who are not poor, who are even not living in the city anymore, who benefited under that administration, and some who did benefit. So I think that's what troubles me a little bit about the ongoing story, not only what Ann Pizza did, but just how the story is being reported. So,
well, I was going to say I really appreciated our coverage because I think that we were able to note the fact that this is not only disturbing and as Mrs. Berry used, disrespectful for Ann Pizza's actions, but it's such a small part of Berry's legacy, which, to your point, not only continues in the district that we have today, but I think, you know, there are so many Washingtonians who have Marion Berry to thank for their first summer job and will be doing so years after 2024. The man died 10 years ago, and his legacy continues. Just last year, we were covering the celebration of Marion Berry Avenue. And so to really disregard his legacy or to silo it to only the poor people or the underrepresented folks of Washington, D.C. is not only fair, but those publications who are doing it are guilty of misinformation because it's just absolutely not true.
I want to, Richard, you want to say something?
I have two last little notes, and that's this further muddies the ability to actually chronologue his history, because if you were to just Google Marion Berry now and try and learn about him, the top 25 or so things are going to be about this particular controversy rather than the fact that he was one of the few civil rights activists that actually became a mayor, that in many, many ways, he brought democracy to DC as it currently exists. It is actually very hard, even for me as like a sort of archival historian, to find detailed information on his administration and the long-term impacts. But much like Micha just said, his legacy is not only continuing, it's growing through the outcrop of like the children and grandchildren whose families rose into the middle class or were able to move or even were just able to sustain as a result of his policies.
Great point. Great point. And I want to move now to someone else whose legacy, when you talk about legacy, that we will probably be talking a lot about going into this new elections, this new cycle. And that is former mayor and Ward 7 candidate Vincent Gray, who announced this week that he will not be voting for the rest of his term due to early onset age-related dementia. And we know that he did not run for re-election in Ward 7, and his term will end in December. But I think there's a lot to talk about with regards to Vince Gray, and we won't do a lot today, but if you were to think of something that would be his greatest legacy, mine, of course, I'm going to just jump in really quick, is the new Cedar Hill Hospital that he wanted to see to fruition before he got out of office and started when he became mayor, is over the Health Commission. And so that will open in February. And I think, I'd love for us to, if it hasn't been done already, to push the idea of creating a ward or some section of that hospital that would be in his name. But anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Well, I'm so sorry to hear about Mayor Gray's, former Mayor Gray's, and the current council member Gray's dementia diagnosis. Quick anecdote, personally, that I love about the former mayor is when he was in office as mayor, he was a part of a Kiwanis Club celebration, giving scholarships to students from around the district. And I think there were everyone who did the volunteer work and were finalists, I should say, got small awards, and we all got laptops, which was wonderful. And so I didn't know who were the top 3 winners who got the big prize. And the person who announced that I was a scholarship recipient was the mayor. And so I just, every time I would see him, I would always say, you helped really contribute to my undergraduate decision to be able to go to Fordham University. So I just wanted to start with that. But one of the things that I really am impressed with Gray currently as a part of his legacy is that his resilience has been so incredibly inspiring throughout his service. Obviously, he's been a dedicated servant to the district for a number of decades, but over the past few years, he's really been struggling with his health and still been dedicated to serving not only his constituents in Ward 7, but to Miss Denise's point, the district at large. And I really just want to commend him for that, because I think it's a lesson in letting your passion keep you going. And so I know this had to be a really difficult decision for him, but I think we should celebrate all that he's accomplished in his many years of service.
Exactly. Again, we haven't had that many mayors of the district. And of course, we've all been very proud of all those that have served. And for him to go from mayor to Ward 7, we know when you talk about history, Richard, we know that there were some hiccups along the way with regards to his service. But, undoubtedly, I think he's been well respected as a member of the DC City Council and the mayor. Yeah,
I'm going to show my age and say that when he served as mayor, I think I was in high school. I think.
Richard, that can't be true, because I know I'm older than you, and I was in high school. I just said that whole story, but that's okay. It makes me feel better. See, so, guys, I'm sorry. This is the editor fact checking. But
it's good. I mean, I think everybody will have a memory of some sort, and to be able to share that, because his, this thing that we've talked about, this dementia, is serious, and is very serious within the Black community, and we'll be doing some more on that. I know our health writer, Linda Valakazi, has been very focused on that. We want to talk more about it. I'm certainly we will be in days ahead. Voting. We'll talk a little bit about voting. Monday on October 28th, the early voting takes place in the District of Columbia. I think you've already started out there, and you're okay, Richard, out there in Prince George's and in Maryland. And I want to know kind of what's been happening on the college campuses, Skylar. So let me bring you in here first. What are students doing? Are they voting absentee? Are they voting in the district? And what are you seeing, and what are they talking about?
Yes. So as you know, a lot of college students can't go home. They are out of state, especially at Howard. I mean, we do have a lot of local Howard students who are from the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. Most students plan on going home to vote. However, the students that aren't going home to vote, they're going to vote absentee. So they're going to send that vote through the mail. One of the biggest worries has been, is my vote going to get counted? Will my vote be seen? And I think that's one of the biggest things and one of the challenges that we're going to see with that electoral vote as well, because there are some arguments that not all votes are counted. So that's one of the biggest conversations that has been surrounding the Howard University area. But of course, Howard University, especially with Kamala Harris being that big alum, they are going to be in support of her.
And I know that folks were hoping to see her last weekend during homecoming. And there is conversation that she may spend election night at Howard, although I understand you and Micha were talking earlier about the fact that the campus may be closed or will be closed on election day. But is there any growing excitement about the fact that she may be there on November 5th?
I think there is. For me personally, just seeing her not being able to come at homecoming, that was announced the morning before the football game that she was not coming. I think some students really anticipate it, but also too, I think with just her presence in DC alone, I think students are just excited overall. But, it would be nice to see her and to see her come out, of course. But I would also understand that if she does stay near the Capitol as well, because of how small DC is.
Mm-hmm. And Richard, I think I mentioned early voting. That started already in Prince George's or in Maryland? Is that correct?
Yes, early voting started yesterday, but given the 2020 introduction of vote by mail as like a primary method of voting, early vote outside of the first few days generally has lower overall turnout because a lot of people, myself included, my grandparents included, my neighbors included, we vote by mail now that those ballots are sent. That said, Anthony Tillman, one of our photographers, he said that he expects a all-time high in turnout at Suitland early voting. I believe that the way that the voting is looking right now in Maryland, it is highly likely that Angela Alsobrooks is elected to the United States Senate, and I would say that she is poised for a 5 to 7 digit victory, which is a great thing.
Yeah, that's quite a prediction there. And so, and also, I didn't know if we were going to see in Prince George's or in DC what we've seen in Atlanta and other places with these extremely long lines. But yeah, like you said, a lot of people are utilizing the mail-in ballots. And I will know on Monday, Micha, what's going to happen in the district. But what are your predictions?
So here in the district, we have a lot of interesting races that our fearless journalists have been covering. Sam P.K. Collins has been following the State Board of Education race really closely. And so I encourage everyone to check in on washington.informer.com for that, as well as the congressional race, which I have my mail-in ballot. And of course, I've been reading and editing and engaging with these stories week after week, but it's so interesting to see these names there and realize, that there's a heated competition going as well for the congressional race. I think a lot of people do predict that the longtime serving representative for the District of Columbia, Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, will be the victor. But it'll be interesting to see the numbers and see how folks turn up. And, I think it's fair to say that no matter how these elections go, whether in the Ward 7 State Board of Education race, as well as the congressional race here in the district, ANCs, all of this, I'm seeing some of these people who are just poising themselves to say, hey, I'm here and very interested in district politics and want to help out the community and how I can. And so these will be people whose names we'll hear for a very long time. They're young, they're excited, And I'm just excited to be a part of watching the action happen.
Well, I know there's a great debate over the passage of Initiative 83. We've talked about that. I know that there's a front page story in this issue of the Washington Informer. We talked about it last week on Let's Talk. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with regards to that initiative here in the District of Columbia. So, and in Baltimore, Skylar, what's happening out there? I mean, I know that you kind of have one ear on the ground in your city.
Yes, the city is really just gearing up for this election, to be so honest with you. I think the biggest thing, Mayor Brandon Scott, he's been pretty active. He's been talking to community leaders. He's been, just really involved. I think one of the biggest things is getting college students involved. He has a lot of interns from Morgan State University and Bowie State University who are really just, helping him along this way. He did attend the Democratic National Convention. So, with that support alone, he is really trying to appeal to the younger audience, especially high school students who are 18 and older, saying, hey, it's time to vote. It's time to get out here and really just hear your voices being heard. And I think that's one of the biggest things that the city of Baltimore does need right now, and is, going through that progress.
Wow, who would have thought? But you're right. I mean, we talk about younger voices, but how do we get them? Who's actually talking to folks? Going to the places where they are and saying, you can register and vote. We tried that in the District of Columbia to get 16-year-olds to vote, but that didn't work. So, but it's not too early to engage them, as Richard talked about being in high school when Vincent Gray was mayor, and that's
which I was in high school in 2011.
Okay, fair. During the tail end. Okay, fair. That's fine.
Yeah, so we want to jump now to some really great conversation. I mean, some great news. I don't care. I mean, there may be some Cowboys fans or some other fans or whatever, but nobody can say that everybody is not excited about the Commanders. What about those Commanders? I mean,
Skylar's a good luck charm. Skylar starts writing about them, they start winning for the first time in my adult life.
Yeah, so Skylar, bring us up to date. I mean, tell us. I mean, this has been unbelievable. Are we Super Bowl bound or what?
Yes, Richard, I appreciate that, because just seeing and hearing what everybody has been talking about with them in the past year. I've spoken to fans, I've spoken to other reporters, I've spoken to the players themselves. They have not had a playoff win since 2008. So this really is coming into the fold. Over the summer, they back in January, they overhauled their entire squad, the coaches, the owner. Basically everybody was replaced. And I think this year, bringing in the new dynamic, the new offensive coordinator, the new defensive coordinator, the head coach, Dan Quinn, he is a defensive guy, and just bringing that aggressiveness and that culture to Washington, D.C. Running back Austin Eckler spoke on this, and wide receiver Terry McLaurin, just the culture that Dan Quinn brings as a coach, and just bringing that in dynamic with the star rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels has really been serving them pretty well.
Shevry wanted me to ask you, Skylar, this, because I mean, folks thought, the back office of the Commanders was toxic with Dan Snyder. He's gone. And we got a new owner. How are folks feeling about the new owner compared to Snyder?
Folks are really excited. The new owner, he's been very involved in just that community engagement. When I was speaking to fans at the Darryl Green celebration for his jersey being retired last weekend, fans were just excited by the dynamic that the organization is bringing. They're starting to embrace the Commanders name, embrace, just being that team, being back at Northwest Stadium, and possibly moving back to RFK later on down the line. But that has not been truly confirmed, but it was an idea. I think just knowing these things alone is getting fans excited. It's getting them geared up for a possible playoff contention here. And I think, as they move forward and as they start to see that all generations of Commanders fans are coming into fold, it's going to be a big one.
So we got a big game coming up on Sunday, right? Give us your prediction on Sunday's game. How, the Commanders win, but how many points? What do you think?
Yes. There are a lot of factors for Sunday's game. Jayden Daniels, he suffered a rib injury at the end of last week's game. He finally got us to a 10-0 lead, but then was ruled out, and that was one of the biggest things that fans were scared of. I could see fans just seeing them at the game just in worriness and being scared because they've seen the Commanders go down. So just seeing that dynamic, like the entire decade just flew by in their mind. And I think, just seeing Marcus Mariota come out into play and getting back into that, I think just really just gave them hope for the future. Even Terry McLaurin, wide receiver Terry McLaurin, he could speak on this, just playing under over 10 quarterbacks in the last decade is kind of scary. It kind of just puts the organization at such a disadvantage. However, seeing him go down, Dan Quinn, he did say that Jayden is on week to week. From a coach's perspective and speaking in sports terms, that doesn't really sound like he's going to play on Sunday. I know fans want to see that dynamic between him and the number one overall draft pick, Caleb Williams. That's supposed to be a very big matchup this Sunday, and fans want to see it for the culture. However, I do believe Dan Quinn is going to have to really stand on it as a coach and say, you're not going to play this weekend because of how far the Commanders have come. And I think that's truly important here.
Richard, I have never heard you be this quiet when talking sports because I mean,
Okay. Let me make 2 points here. While I am not a supporter of the Commanders, it is illegal to not support black quarterbacks. And let me read some of the stats that Jayden Daniels has been leading the team to so far this season. Right now, the Commanders lead the NFL in total yards. In total points. They're third in total yards. They're third in first downs, third in passing attempts, and fourth in yards per passing attempt with only 3 turnovers. Jayden Daniels has been a hallmark of efficiency. The ability to pass and run the ball as of yet has been unprecedented. He is doing stuff that Lamar Jackson, that Steve Young, that Donovan McNabb, etc., were unable to do even in the primes of their career, and he's doing it as a rookie. The team is right now poised for greatness as long as they continue to build the team in ways that really affect his abilities. The team right now, I think, is like top 5 in rushing, and the number 1 running back has only about 400 rushing yards. If the team, in my opinion, is able to get a running back that can block and receive the ball out of the backfield, maybe a tight end, they convert to a running back, get some offensive linemen to protect them, and the 2 most important, getting a wide receiver number 2 option and getting a cornerback. I think this team could win a Super Bowl during the reign of Jayden Daniels. Now, I'm not going to say I'm rooting for it, but I'm not going to root against it either.
Well, your sweatshirt certainly does give me the impression that you're halfway there. So, I'm sure we would love to have you as one of our fans. I mean, Micha, I've been pretty quiet. I don't know if there's something you wanted to add in before we close out.
Well, go Commanders, but I have to just say this, and if anyone takes my idea now, I know who to come after. All these folks watching Win TV. It is illegal not to support black quarterbacks belongs on a t-shirt. That is great, Richard. But yes, go Commanders all the way. I'm excited to see Sunday's game.
All right.
And look out for Skylar's coverage, everybody.
That's right. Skylar, will you be there?
Yes, I will be there in the fold watching possibly Jayden Daniels or Marcus Mariota start this game and lead out for the Commanders. I'm excited.
Before we go, Skylar, I just want to ask you one question, though. I mean, you're a female, you're a young female, but how do they treat you out there at those games? I mean, do you have to fight like the Commanders have had to get your spot, to be recognized, or what? What's it like for you?
Now, I can actually speak on this. When I first started, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm finally here in the mix, just seeing what is going on. It was a little nerve-wracking at first because I was like, I don't want to overhaul the players, but just being there and being in that dynamic, I think people are starting to understand that is my job, just fighting through that just a little bit, but also too, they look at me and they're like, oh, she's not going anywhere. So we're going to expect her questions. We're going to expect her presence. And it's been overall just an exciting experience. It's been a learning experience for me. And it's also just been too fulfilling because I love sports. So
yes, wonderful.
Skylar, you are excelling, and I cannot wait to talk positively about the Washington Wizards with you in about 2 years.
Yes, they have their game. Actually, tomorrow they have voters' night. So that's going to be a big game, especially too, since they're working on trying to get out that dynamic. I know Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma talked about this at Media Day, just the importance of voting too. So that's going to be a good one.
Folks, I want to thank you all for this conversation. It was great. I hope we can do it. Well, I know we're going to do it again next month. So we will have more, might have a couple more members of the team, have a lot more to talk about when it comes to sports, have a lot to talk about when it comes to politics and elections. So look forward to us getting together on Win TV as well. I want folks to know we're reporting as well that Vice President Kamala Harris reportedly will be at the National Mall on Tuesday, October the 30th. It's sort of an in-your-face Donald Trump kind of thing to show how unity on the mall can happen. And so we will be there to cover that as well. So until then, I just want to thank you for joining us today on this edition of Let's Talk.